Hello and welcome to the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grausbel, and joining me today is Bret Miller. And Bret is a 14-year breast cancer survivor. He was diagnosed 15 years. Sorry, excuse me, 15 years.
It's coming up. We got about a week left. And it'll be 15 years. I just figure round up.
Okay. So he was diagnosed at age 24. However, he found the lump initially when he was 17. So we're going to talk all about that story. He and his family founded the Bret Miller 1T Foundation, Male Breast Cancer Happens, Inc. And it was formed so that no men ever feel alone when they hear those words that they have breast cancer. So he loves his family, his wife, Tasha, his daughter, Riley, and his son, Ryder. And his hashtags are hashtag together we will change the world and hashtag men have breasts too. So welcome to the show, Bret.
Thank you for having me, Melissa.
And we spoke with your mom on a previous episode. So, she talked a little bit more on her side and what she went through being a mom and all of that stuff. And, I want to have you on to really talk about your story because we didn't go into too much detail with her about your story, even though I'm sure she wanted to, but I kept no, you talk about yourself and then we'll talk to Bret about Bret.
Many times we do interviews together and I'm just there as the pretty face and she talks the entire time and tells my whole story as it is. And then they ask, Bret, what about you? And I go, well, she pretty much just said it also.
So I really want to get into this because this is such a big deal because, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. People don't think about men when it comes to breast cancer.
No, and it's just the way society is. It's always been out there as women only. And don't get me wrong, it is a female-dominated disease. And more females are getting diagnosed. If you just look at numbers and stuff, sheer numbers, you see, okay, that's a lot of females, not so many men, being diagnosed, dying from it, so on. But there are also more treatments focused on women because that's just all that's ever really happened. And men are able to get it now too. And it's just the treatments are always focused on women. So their survival rate's a lot higher than the men. Just because they know that it's a possibility they can get it, so the treatments are there and they can get it done. Men don't know that it's a possibility they can get it because everything is it's pinkwashed. So everybody just immediately thinks breast cancer, women only, that's it. So it's just as a society, we need to, or that what we're trying to do is work a little bit better to be more inclusive.
Now, are the treatments different for men and women, or is it just actually getting it diagnosed and getting people to take it seriously?
Yes. I mean, some treatments can be different, but for the most part, when I was diagnosed, they're like, well, your tumor is very similar to this kind of tumor that we find in women. So we're just going to run with it. It works pretty well for women. So we're going to try it on you and see how it works. That's essentially how you kind of get told, what it is, because that's all that the studies are there for. That's all, the research is only just showing, hey, this, their tumor looks like this female's tumor looks like that. This treatment worked. Let's just try it on them, and it probably 95% of the time always works, but there's still just that little bit that's going to react differently for a male just because our body makeup is different, and it may not be just as effective of what it is, or it sucks hearing as a male that, hey, this worked for them over there, so we're going to give it our best shot for you, essentially. Or study shows that this worked for this female, so we're going to try it on you just to see how it works for you. Like it's kind of like a one size fits all when it comes to the men, just because the research, the numbers aren't there big enough for us to get the proper research on treatments, and it's just such a small sample size. It's hard for them to, know exactly what it is. I know it's made a lot of progress since I was diagnosed, for a lot of the men, a lot of the treatments that they are getting, it is working because it shows that it works for the females. So, but it just kind of sucks being like, hey, studies show that it works. This treatment worked for that female and stuff, so we're going to give it a shot for you. I mean, that's essentially what I was told, when
Gotcha.
I was going through mine. So
And now when women are diagnosed, they're diagnosed as, positive or negative. So there's estrogen, progesterone, HER2, positive or negative. Is a male diagnosis the same, or like are there hormones that drive male breast cancer as they are with women?
I wish I had the better answer for that.
Okay.
I am definitely a survivor and an advocate for awareness and inclusivity for men when it comes to breast cancer. I'm horrible when it comes to the science side of it.
Gotcha.
So my I was diagnosed. Mine was DCIS, which is
Okay.
stage 0.
Right.
But on the first preliminary pathology report, because there was no biopsies, on it at first, there was no initial test. The first surgeon just decided to take the lump out because of what I had told him, that I had had this lump for so long, and the previous doctors, the one I did bring it up, said that it was a calcium deposit. So he never once, nobody until the day that I was officially diagnosed, April 28th of 2010, said breast cancer before then. And the month and a half, almost 2 months of go get the first physical, then setting up to go get the ultrasound, going into the females clinic for the ultrasound, that then led to the mammogram 10 minutes after the ultrasound, and then being set up with the surgeon and just being told it's going to take out and everything. Nobody had said anything about breast cancer the entire time. And then so I went in, they took the lump, I had a quick surgery, they took the lump out and everything, and then they called the next day. That surgeon said that, hey, the preliminary pathology reports are saying that it's breast cancer. I haven't fully read the reports and everything, but I will read them and get back to you in 3 to 5 days.
Wow. So even going through all of this, you had no idea that it was breast cancer.
Yep. Yeah. And I had no thoughts of it being breast cancer because I just didn't know. I mean, I knew Richard Roundtree. I had seen his interview in early 2000s when he came out. I know he had an interview in like Entertainment Tonight. My mom was watching it. I walked through the house and everything, and it was on, and I just heard Richard Roundtree, original Shaft, has breast cancer, or he talking about it and stuff, which was way beyond, like 6, 7 years after his diagnosis. Like I've actually met him in person on the Katie Couric show, which was a really cool,
Wow,
really
that's
cool thing.
exciting.
And he was telling me, he was like, yeah, I was diagnosed in 93, 94. And I didn't actually start going to any type of support groups or talking about it until like 97, 98. He was too worried that in Hollywood, that if he said that he had breast cancer, then he would start losing work,
Mm.
because breast cancer, females, emasculating, and all that. So
And he
he
was
didn't say
Shaft.
exactly. He was Shaft. I mean, come on. So he didn't say anything for the longest time. And so, I mean, yeah, I knew that somebody could get breast cancer, a male could get breast cancer, only because of Richard Roundtree, but I just didn't know because, or didn't think that it was me, because I just didn't think it was possible, you know, at my age, and then you get that diagnosis and you do the whole deep dark web search on Google, and then you see some things that you don't want to see and hear
Right.
and read and everything, but it all makes sense once you do, because you see all the symptoms and you're like, man, I really should have been a little more proactive about it.
So take us back. Take us back to when you were, 17, and that 7 year time period. Like, you know, did you just kind of let it go, and you kept seeing this thing here and just, oh, it's probably nothing, it'll go away. Like, take us back to what was going through your mind during all of that time, and
Yeah.
not being taken seriously by your doctors.
So when I first found the lump, I was just hanging around afternoon or evening or whatnot, just watching some TV, sports, whatever was on. I honestly don't remember, but I know I was watching TV. I just kind of did like one of those like pushbacks in the chair and stretch, and I kind of did this scratch, and I was like, oh, what's this? That's weird, a lump right below my nipple and everything, and I was like, okay, whatever. And I had a physical coming up not too fairly soon, because football was getting ready to start for my senior year, and so you have to get a physical every year just to deem that you're fit and healthy and there's no major underlying issues, all that. So Went to go get that physical. They checked me out, and I mentioned something. And the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, it's calcium buildup. You're 17. You're going through puberty. It's probably nothing to worry about. Keep an eye on it, and if anything changes, just let us know." And then I was like, "Okay, whatever." I mean, that age, you just kind of, doctor tells you something. You're like, "Well, you went to school for a long time. You're learning. You're studying things. You're pretty smart. I'm going to take your advice."
And you're
So you just
invincible and know everything when you're 17, right?
exactly, yeah, that too. All of the above. And then so whole senior year goes by and stuff. I still end of the year, get all the forms and everything for college and stuff, and then you have to have like certain vaccination, meningitis and all that. So I went to go get that vaccination and everything, and I was like, "Hey doc, while I'm here, I still have this lump," and it was a different doctor actually. It wasn't the same one, but I was like, "Hey, I mentioned this to this doctor when I had that physical, and so on, and say it now and stuff." And he kind of looks and he goes, "Yeah, sometimes these just take time, but I don't see it as anything major, nothing to worry about." So this is 2003, 2004, his senior year of high school and stuff. So once again, it was just kind of like, okay, take the doctor's word for it. Well, you know, cross 18, parents are self-employed, so we only, we had like state health insurance at the time, and then once I crossed 18, didn't have health insurance. College kid, scraping by, all that, the whole stereotypical American college kid. So anytime I ever went to the doctor, it was only because if I felt just really sick, common cold, stomach bug, whatever. Um, so I just kind of brushed it off just the entire time, because as a male, somebody gives you advice, sometimes you just take it, you just kind of run with it. And, unless you feel like you're absolutely physically dying and stuff, sometimes you just don't go to the doctors. And, so I just kind of, 7 years, graduated college, been out for, year and a half, 2 years almost from, college and all that. And been
Now, did you
working.
notice any changes during this whole time, or did it just pretty much stay the same?
Well, yeah, I noticed changes. I just didn't say anything, did it, bud?
Okay.
So yeah, about a year and a half, 2 years goes by and everything. I was at the country club that I'd worked at for so long. I actually just left it the last November and stuff, but I was there for 23 years.
Wow.
But I had had health insurance through them after I graduated, because I got hired on to manage the pool right after college, because this is 2008. So economically, the job market was horrible,
Mm.
coming out of college. So, they offered me a job, and they're like full time. There's benefits, there's health insurance, and all that stuff. I was like, yeah, it all sounds great. I was doing that and stuff, and time had gone by, and my parents were like, "Hey, do you still have that lump?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And they're like, when was the last time you had a physical? And I was like, before college, like 2000, graduated in 2008. 2010, this is when they're asking me and everything. I'm like, they're like, "You need to get to the doctor. That's too long to have a lump in your body and not do anything about it and stuff." I'm like, "Well, I haven't physically felt bad at all, but like you asked, you had any symptoms and everything?" Well, yeah, for about that year and a half, 2 years or so, maybe a little bit more, kind of all blurs together and stuff. I did have a yellow orangish discharge from the nipple if I did squeeze it or bump into it something, but I thought that was just a calcium buildup dissipating and going away, like I was told by 2 doctors before.
You listen to
So
your
I just
doctors, right?
exactly, a lot of us, you take it with a grain of salt, but a lot of people in society like to, believe that the doctors are giving the best information that they
Mhm.
have,
And
and
usually
I
they are.
and I do believe that they absolutely are.
It's just
But
the best
medicine,
information that they have.
exactly,
Yeah.
medicine changes every single day, every single minute, every single second. They're learning just as much. It's called a practice for a reason, because they
Mhm.
are still learning, because medicine, they have to keep with it. So sometimes just certain information just doesn't get there. So I'd never fault any doctor. People are like, "Would you ever go back and sue those doctors that misdiagnosed you at 17?" I go, what doctor in 2003 or 2004 is thinking a 17-year-old male's lump is breast cancer?
Right.
I guarantee you, not one. Like, I don't think anybody jumps to that just because there's no hereditary past. So then they're like, "Oh, there's no way this can be that way." So, but yeah, so 2010, go to the doctor. I went to just a male health clinic or something like that, and just for routine physical. They did all the blood work, did the standard tests and all that stuff. And he was like, "All right, I'll call you back, about a week once I get those blood tests. Once those blood results come back and everything. But other than that, you look great. You seem healthy and everything. So we'll see you later and stuff. And he starts walking out the door. I was like, hey, doc, kind of the main reason I came was, I've had this lump behind my right nipple for, quite some time now, 7+ years. And I say lump nipple 7 years, and the doctor just kind of like turned around and looked and everything and slowly closed the door. And he was like, say that again? Yeah. And he comes back over and he checks it and feels it and everything. He goes, let's set up for an ultrasound. I'll get, we'll put that order in and stuff. They'll call you in a couple days to schedule an appointment and everything. I'm like, okay. So I think like a week goes by before I can get in. The place that I go, that I knew that it was, they're like, it's Image Diagnostics is the name of the building. And I was like, okay. And I knew exactly where it was. It sits right there in the corner of the street. I walk in there and they're like, oh, sorry, this is just the MRI area. You got to go to the other building behind us. It's the larger, building behind and stuff. And they're like, it's Suite 200. And I'm like, okay. I'm like walking in and stuff. I'm like looking around and I find Suite 200 and stuff. And it's just big bold letters. Might have been pink, probably just white, but I just probably want to say pink. And she goes, women's clinic. And I was like, they said it's 200, right? So I kind of like open the door and step in and like, they're at the desk and stuff. And they go, Bret Miller? And I go, gee, am I the only male you're seeing today or ever? Just like I had to think of myself and everything. So yeah, walked in. I never thought that I'd get greeted at a doctor's office by name, never being there before. So then they ask you to fill all the forms and stuff. So it's like, name, insurance, address, when's your last menstrual cycle? Are you pregnant?
Oh, yes.
All of those questions because
are you menopausal?
It's a women's clinic. So there's right. They don't have a generic form and everything. So I filled out just the first 3 questions: name, address, insurance. Handing it back. I was like, I don't think I can answer anything else for you. And then, I got brought back, but it was interesting because it was like it was like musical chairs. Is the easiest way to put it. They're like, here, hold on for a second. Somebody's in the hallway. Okay, now you can come back. They cleared the hallway and stuff. They got me into a room and they're like, hey,
so the women were back there.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So then they were like, hey, here's this. Oh, sorry, it's pink. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not, like I said, nobody has ever said anything about breast cancer with this lump. And then they're like, okay, we'll come back here in a minute and grab you. We just got to make sure, we're letting other females know that there's a male back here, just so they don't feel awkward and everything. But we'll come get you when the coast is clear, essentially. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then do the musical chairs. They get me in to go get the to get the ultrasound. So I'm laying there. The nurse tech and everything, she's doing what it is, and then the radiologist comes in. She kind of looks at the screen just to ensure that everything was there on what was requested. But she does this like triple take. She's like, screen me. Let's go right down the hall. We can do a mammogram. Just to ensure that, we get all scans and you don't have to come back in on a day off and miss more work and everything. But, just in case your doctor wanted to see another image and everything, we already got it done. My response was, is that physically possible?
Is it?
I mean, it is. I mean, they're small breasted women. So yes, it's possible, but man, it did not feel good.
Doesn't feel good for women either.
No, I feel your pain now, so I totally know. I mean, I've been, I think I have to go every 6 months. We met with another doctor, and she's like, no, it'd probably just be a good thing just to be on a 6-month kind of regimen, just to make sure that nothing's hitting the left side. So yeah, I've been doing that for the last couple of years, but I'm just kind of like, it's gotten better. The last one wasn't so bad.
Okay.
It does.
I think it depends on who your tech is too.
That too.
Yeah.
I think the machines have gotten a little bit better and stuff. They don't have, once it's kind of like in there, they don't have to like keep pressing down.
Right.
But yeah, so I did the mammogram, the scans and everything got sent to the doctor, met with him at some point, and he was like, yeah, just kind of looking at the scans and stuff. He goes, yeah, you see this white and everything. It looks like it's calcium, so on, whatever. But, we'll just take, he goes, I just prefer to take it out. He goes, now I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put this surgery through. All the insurance is going to see is male chest surgery, and they're going to go no. They're going to deny it. So I'm going to have to resubmit it again, call them, explain it, write a longer letter, all this stuff. And everything that he said was right. I mean, so it was like 2.5 weeks after the initial, meeting with the doctor that I was in there. So I went in there on April 27th, 2010, got the lump removed. April 28th, I'm leaving work to go work to my second job. And I get the call from the doctor saying that it's breast cancer. He hasn't fully read the report, but he'll read it and get back to me in a couple days. And
That's it?
That was it. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So if you ever watched the show A Million Little Things,
I have not.
Oh, so on there, James Roday's character is a male breast cancer survivor as well.
Okay.
And the very first episode where he's sitting there at the table, and in the doctor's office on the table, and the doctor comes in and he's arguing about what dressing he wants on his salad for lunch. And then James and his character was just like, "Hey, doc, I'm here. This is kind of my appointment time and everything." He just kind of goes, "Oh yeah, it's canceled. Great, you're good to go." That was it. Waiting the entire time and just, so it just, and I was like, I felt that, like, from the get-go, from when I was diagnosed and stuff, being like, yeah, it's cancer, but we'll meet in a couple days. There's no like coming in and everything. So I called my dad. Excuse me. I called my dad. I let him know. I go, please don't tell mom because I'm going to work. It's going to be busy. I don't have time to answer the 1,000 questions that she's going to ask us. I have no answers. I don't really know. He goes, well, how are you? And I go, the lump's gone. What more is it going to be? Like, it can't be that bad. So I was like, I'm okay. 5 minutes go by and my mom calls. I was just like, gee, Dad, thanks for helping out. I asked him that afterwards. And he goes, we're in the same room. I literally turned around and she saw it, like, on my face. She calls. Yeah, she asked all the questions. I was like, I don't know. I was like, you were there. I signed all the HIPAA forms for him to discuss everything with you guys as well, just so that I had somebody else in the loop with me, because I didn't know what was going on with all these surgeries and all this stuff. Like, I was never thinking breast cancer. So, she called Race Health, Mama Bear. You had her on the podcast.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
Very much Mama Bear.
So we weren't in there in 3 to 5 days. We were in there the next day. So met with him, met with the doctor, asked him a whole bunch of questions. What's the next steps? And he goes, double mastectomy. No way around it. That's what the standard of treatment is right now. It's a double mastectomy for men. And I was like, I'm losing both my nipples? Like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, that's the standard treatment. I go, okay, well, how many surgeries have you performed it for? And he goes, well, I've done it about 5 or 6 on females. How many males? You'd be the first one. Okay, thanks. And I was like, there's no way around it. Like, I'm going to be like one side and everything. He goes, nope, standard treatment is that. And I was like, okay, respectfully, I'm going to get a second opinion. His bedside manner for everything, he was very rude. Only being called on the phone to be told that it was breast cancer, like all of that stuff. I was just like, right. You know what? I prefer to go get a second opinion. And it was a good thing. Like, once I was diagnosed, my case got, I got asked by the nurse navigators. They're like, hey, some of these doctors really want to, look at your case. Can we share it with them? They're like, it's going to say male, 24, breast cancer. That's it. That's all. Your name's not going to be on it. I was like, it's whatever. I go, is it going to help me, with everything? They're like, honestly, yeah, probably. I was like, okay, let's do it. So it got shared out with kind of like a round table for a lot of top doctors in the Kansas City area. And we met with, before we met with the other surgeon, we had already been set up for genetics or geneticist at the cancer center and everything. And met with that geneticist and everything. We were going through a bunch of stuff, and we were leaving the cancer center to go meet with that next surgeon. And my parents were with me and stuff, and my dad has a frozen drink business and everything. And we were in the parking lot, and another doctor comes walking up, and he goes, Margarita Bob. He goes, hey, how are you? Wait, why are you guys here? And everything, and he was like, you okay? Or and looking at my dad and my mom and stuff. We're like, no, yeah, we're good and stuff. We're actually here for Bret. He was just diagnosed with cancer and breast cancer. We were kind of telling some people like breast cancer and stuff, being a doctor and stuff. And he goes, oh, you're the 24-year-old male that we just talked about, like you
Wow.
just talked about it and stuff. And he goes, I can assure you and stuff, you've got some of the top minds in the area and stuff looking at it and stuff. You're going to be okay.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of cool, hearing that and everything. But so we go meet with the next surgeon, Dr. Lon McCroskey. He performed the surgery on 12 other males before. So I was like, that's reassuring. You know, general surgeon, but done many breast cancer cases for both males and females. Newest stuff. He was referred to, we were referred to him by many people. So it all ended up working out and everything. But it was within that first meeting with him that he said that, like, hey, I know this is a lot of information. Your age, breast cancer, men. He goes, I have performed the surgery on a dozen males before. I can try to reach out to some of them to see if you have any questions to ask, but I can be honest with you, most of them are older and stuff, so it may be a little different. But a lot of them just performed the surgery, took time off work, recovered, and went back to work and don't talk about it at all. Just because of what it is. He goes, but the way we've talked, the way you've been in here and stuff. He goes, I feel this energy from you. Like, if you're willing to share your story, I believe that you can put a face to male breast cancer. You can share your story and help others. And I was like, okay, thanks. And, kind of thought about it. Next meeting was with a plastic surgeon because I was like, I like going to the pool with my friends or the lake. We do float trips here in the Midwest all the time. And I managed at a pool. So there's going to be times that I'd have to have my shirt off doing, cleaning the pool and doing stuff around the pool. So, like, what am I going to look like? Because the only pictures that I saw once you search male breast cancer at the time, the very few that were on there was a Marine saluting with no breasts, with two lines and a concave chest and everything because of, the mastectomy. So I met with a plastic surgeon, got his input on it and everything. And he was like, he's one of the top breast surgeons in the area for both either reconstructive or just regular, breast surgeries for women and stuff. So I was like, yeah, friend of the family too. His sister and stuff we know very well here in Casey, and it was just meeting with him. He goes, I'm not going to tell you that no, I can't. It's going to take a little research, but I definitely know that I can get the the right information and look at this, and we can get something great and everything. But essentially, I was going to be the first male that he would have ever performed it on, and it was right there at that point that I was like, thank you for taking the time and everything, but I'm not going to do any reconstructive because this is, I took into account from what Dr. McCroskey said about sharing my story. And it was like, this is just going to be how it is. And this is probably going to be the only way that I can actually like share my story,
Okay.
and prove that I had breast cancer. Because if I had reconstructive and everything looked normal and stuff, like who's going to believe me? Like, I'm a male and I'm saying I have breast cancer. Like,
But
you
you
know,
look normal.
yeah, and I look normal. Like,
Right.
nobody's gonna believe it and stuff. So I was just like, you know what, I don't want to change anything. Like, this is gonna be the only way that I think that I can, make an impact and prove that yeah, I have breast cancer and men can get breast cancer too. Because a lot of times, you hear it and stuff, and people are like, "You're kidding, you're right, you're joking. It's a joke, right?" And we
Wow.
got that, and I mean, even the first cancer walk that I went to go check in as a survivor, and they kind of looked at me like, "What?" And I lifted up my shirt and I showed my scar. They go, "Yeah, just finished my treatments." Actually, I think I had one more treatment to go, so I was like 3 treatments in because my hair was starting to fall out. But yeah, so decided going back to after meeting with Krosky, the plastic surgeon and everything. Then I was set up for May 18th for the mastectomy. We were only going to do the single one at a time. We were going to come back and do the left side. So we did the right side. We had like 2 or 3 news stations in the OR room. Day of, they were asking like, we want to report on this. We want to share this out. Like, if you're willing to share it and stuff, like, we think you can be in. I was like, sure, whatever. Like, I'll sign whatever. I don't care. So morning of the surgery, my surgeon gets a call from his friends, both at John Hopkins and MD Anderson. And this is, I mean, how he tells us, he goes, we only have to do the single mastectomy. Things, medicine changes all the time and stuff. Right now, they're saying we don't have to do the double mastectomy, and I was like, okay, great. So they did all the, they did surgery, they did the sentinel node biopsy to make sure where, if it had spread at all.
Mhm.
I was extremely lucky that it had not spread for the time that I had.
Yay.
I didn't know until, and my mom might have said it in the other podcast and everything. Um, I didn't know until the next day when my mom told me. But I guess the morning of the surgery, the doctor pulled my parents aside and
Mhm.
prepare for the worst but hope for the best and everything, and told me
Right.
like the amount of time that he's had this, it could be everywhere. But I didn't know that. I was always trying to think positive, but hearing that afterwards, it kind of scared the crap out of me.
Better to hear it afterwards than
Oh
beforehand.
yeah,
Yeah.
after everything,
Right.
waking up and being told that everything's all good. We got it all.
That is
So
beautiful.
yeah, so
Somebody
I
was
got
up there
very
watching out for you.
absolutely. I got extremely lucky. I tell everybody every day. Um, but sorry,
No, don't ever be sorry for being emotional. That's a big deal.
because not a lot are. So men and women. So
Well, because
um,
most men wait until it's too late because they don't
stage
want to.
stage three, stage four, because
Yeah.
we don't know that it's possible. Two, they don't want to believe it's possible.
Right.
They don't want to believe that that they can be a strong masculine male and be diagnosed with breast cancer.
So, so
So we push it off.
was it the doctors, talking to you about this? Like, what was it inside of you that said, I want to be the face of this. I want to share this. I want to make sure that other people, don't go through what I went through. Was it just
It,
like a split second, like I'm going to do this, or,
I've always been the one to try to help out everybody as much as I can.
okay.
Just doing small tasks. Always helping out. Always helped out my mom, my dad, my grandma. Whatever I could do. So I just saw it as an opportunity to help somebody else, and I was like, hey, as long as I can help one other person, then hey, mission accomplished. It was never really that I wanted to be the face of male breast cancer or anything like that. I just wanted to shed light on something that could affect somebody else.
Gotcha.
And it just bring bring forward that, hey guys, it's okay to be diagnosed. It sucks hearing the words you have breast cancer, of course, as a male, because you hear breast and stuff and immediately as the male mind and stuff you go boobs, tits, and you're like, I don't have those, but why do I have breast cancer and everything? Well, we all have breast tissue.
Mhm.
you know may not have the physical boobs, breasts, and everything that you think, but we still have breast tissue and stuff. We're all essentially born female, and then we have the chromosome that changes, during that 9 months, it turns us into a male. So we all have breast tissue. So we need to get beyond this male female thing, because it's not a male's disease, it's not a female's disease. This is a people's disease. We are all getting affected by it, and we all need to come together to build the awareness, more inclusivity, and hopefully try to better the treatments for all. But the
Yes.
biggest thing that we all can do is be our own best advocates of our own body. Know our body. If you feel something and something's wrong, get to the doctor. Early detection does save lives. You know,
Absolutely.
I I got mine was technically early detection for 7 years, but I know it's funny when you say it and put it
Yeah.
together like that. But I mean, it did. Like when I asked the doctor, I was like, how was it only what it was? And they're like, well, it probably wasn't always cancerous and stuff. At some point, the cells could have just turned, and that's when it became cancerous. But for the time you had it, it could have been, nothing for 6 years, and then that last year is when it turned. They were trying to explain it, and I'm just kind of like, okay, science, don't get
And so
it.
maybe it needed to take the 7 years before you finally did something about it,
Yeah,
because if it had been done, immediately, oh gee, it's just nothing and don't worry about it kind of thing.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I got extremely lucky. No cases are alike. A lot of our men aren't. So anything that I can do to shed light on it and share my story, that's why I'm doing it, because you never know who it's going to affect. Like I said, I was on the Katie Couric show. Met Richard Roundtree, one of our survivors up in the Bronx, Michael Singer. He was diagnosed about a year. So that was, I think we were diagnosed right about the same time.
Okay.
So yeah, I believe if I remember correctly, we were both in like 2010. I was in the beginning. He was towards the end of the year. And his sister had breast cancer too. She ultimately passed from stage 4 and everything. But he had it for the entire time from when he was diagnosed to when he saw me on the Katie Couric show, but was not very talkative about it. Always was afraid to talk about it and everything. He saw my story on the Katie Couric show and everything, and he called us literally within that next day or so, within that week
Wow.
and everything. Seeing me share my story and stuff, and I tell a time when I always joke with him and stuff. Now I can't get the guy to shut up about it. No, but that right there, like that was somebody who was had been going through it for 2 to 3 years and didn't want to say anything, but he saw my story and he saw a light and he was like, "Hey, thank you." And yeah, and he's a major advocate not only for male breast cancer but for stage 4 because of his sister and everything. He's very talkative now, and I had that impact and I didn't think that was really possible, but it was. So kind of all came full circle really on that point. I mean, there were several others along the way, but it was kind of that one, being able to be put on a national stage type thing and having, seen somebody that had been dealing with it but didn't want to talk about it, never said anything. It's him and his wife and his few family members that knew about it, and that was it. So,
And who knows how many other people watched that episode that never came forward to you,
yep.
but actually did something about it.
Yep. I'll never know, but hopefully at some point we can cross paths, and they can tell me someday. But so yeah, I had the mastectomy. We did some more testing and everything. I was like the second guy that did the Oncotype DX test, which looks at the tumor at the genomic level. Once again, science.
Science.
Um, and they just compared all the data to all the data for many years of then what it was, and they're like, it's very similar to this type of tumor that these females have had, and studies show that if you do 4 rounds of chemotherapy followed by 5 years of hormone therapy and stuff, you can reduce your chances of cancer coming back by up to 10%. And it also gives you a number of they said that I had a 22% chance of cancer of some sort coming back over a 10-year period. And so they're like, if you do this, it can reduce it by 10, up to 10%. So I was like, okay, I feel fine. I feel healthy. I don't look sick. So I don't feel sick and everything. Yeah, I have been diagnosed with cancer and everything, but I don't feel it. So I was like, you know what? Let's do whatever we can to bring that number closer to zero as much as we can. So I did the 4 rounds of chemotherapy. I honestly never felt nauseous with it. I had a few body aches, but only because I forgot to take the little steroid pill they told me to take before treatment and then after treatment on like the second or third round. So I was like, yo, chemo brain. Yeah, I forgot. Um, and then it wasn't, like I said, it was in between the second and the third treatment is when my hair started falling out. And that's when it pissed me off the most about being diagnosed with cancer. Because like I said, the entire time I felt fine. I think, when I had the mastectomy and everything, I had the tube for, the grenade and tube and everything for 7 to 10 days or whatever it is and everything. But by the third day after my surgery and stuff, I was back at work. Like I had to go back. Like, and even when I walked in, everybody's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" I was like, I was going stir crazy. That's for one. I couldn't sit at home for too long and stuff. So, but yeah, it wasn't until in between the second and third treatments that my hair started falling out, and that's when I got pissed the most. And everybody was like, "Why? Because you're losing your hair?" I go, "No, it's because I look sick. I have no hair. I have no eyebrows. I have no eyelashes and everything. I didn't have a beard. COVID is the first time I could actually grow a full beard and everything. So, um, it was. But I looked in the mirror and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I look like one of those patients that look like they're dying, but I don't feel that way, and I'm not. But it just sucked at the end. It was just what it was because some people would like walk up and they either didn't know you or first time meeting, they're like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. It's just a side effect of the treatment." But everybody was like, "Are you scared about losing your hair?" And I go, "No." They're like, "What if it comes back a different color?" And different color or curly hair or something like that. And I go, "Well, I'll know how I look bald. So if I want to revert back, I can go to that." But I just lost a nipple. Hair grows back, the nipple won't. So I'm
Right.
like, I'll be fine. Like, it's not worrying about me. So did the 4 rounds of the treatment, finished everything. It was September 21st of 2010. Um, and if I ever forget, because of chemo brain, I have it tattooed on my side.
Love that. Love that.
um, and then I started tamoxifen. I was on tamoxifen for 30 days, had the mood swings, my mom said, but I think that was just a nagging mom annoying her son. But definitely had the hot flashes, and I did not like those at all. And so they're like, if you have any side effects, let us know. And I was like, yeah, is there something else? And they took me off to tamoxifen. Let kind of 30 days later, let the body kind of get it all out and everything. And then they started me on anastrozole Arimidex. And I was on that for 5 years, and I honestly didn't feel like I ever had any side effects from it at all. I
Awesome.
felt like I was just taking a vitamin. So yeah, April 28th. So coming up here in about 10 days or so, I will
Yeah, it's
be
very exciting.
officially 15 years. I
15
know
years, that is
yep,
huge.
everybody, it's different, but 15 years, it's what it's been and stuff. So it's been a journey, and along the way, like I said, I was sharing my story, and we started that 501c3, so we could try to help people, and just our biggest thing. It's not, it's nothing about the money and stuff, because most of the stuff we pay out of pocket still. But it was just to share their story, and make sure that no man feels alone like I did, because I didn't have anybody to talk to. I did reach
Right.
out to two of your bigger cancer foundations for breast cancer, and I was told, nope, sorry, we only focus on women. Sorry.
Fortunate.
Oh yeah, he's young, but he doesn't fit in our demographic for here. Um, but things have changed and it's evolved. I've been kind of welcome, asked to come back and everything. I've been like, yeah, I'll support here and there. Um, but we started the Bret Miller 1T Foundation to just start raising the awareness. The way it started for men and women, but mostly in the youth. Just because how young I was, just to be be a better advocate about your body, know your body. Um, being 17, having it. So we started speaking a lot of the high schools. I went back to my high school many times and spoke at different classes, and then a couple colleges and everything. But everybody asked like, well, why the Bret Miller 1T Foundation? I was like, I didn't really ever want my name on it. I wanted the One Nipple Foundation, but I was told that that was inappropriate. So, and my name's always had one. My mom decided to choose me as a Bret with 1T. I was born a week after the Royals won the 1985 World Series, and I was one of 11 boys in the hospital named Bret.
After George Brett, right?
Everybody else was Bret with 2 T's, and she decided to choose, Bret with 1T after Bret Saberhagen. She said she always knew it was going to be Bret. She just didn't know which way to spell it. I always was upset as a kid because any other Brets that I met were Bret with 2T. So I was like, why am I different? I can never find my name tag, on the nameplates and everything at the
Yep.
gift shops and everything, because it's always Bret with 2T's. Well, when I was officially diagnosed and had the surgery and everything, it all kind of came full circle. It's Bret with 1T, one tit, one nipple. So I got my One Nipple Foundation name, but it's
It's
not
just the
written
1T
there.
Foundation.
It's just the 1T Foundation.
Right.
So I subtly got it in there with the help of my dad and my brother, kind of being creative and coming up with it. Um, and then, so we did that like shortly after I was diagnosed, to just kind of, kind of have that legitimacy behind it, for people to kind of take it a little seriously and stuff. But it just started evolving a lot, and getting recognition throughout the U.S. and throughout the world and everything. And
Wow.
that's kind of where we came up with the Male Breast Cancer Happens to.
And that is the website, malebreastcancerhappens.org.
.org, correct?
And then and like we talked with your mom about this too, but also breastselfexams.org has the cards in over 20 languages for men
Something like
and
that. We got
women,
quite a
to be
few.
able to do breast self-exam, because that's really like, because men, women, like we go and we have our mammograms, like that's not a
Yeah.
thing for men. So really doing those self-exams is going to be probably the best way to to find something.
Well, yeah, because you're also not men aren't going to get it in their physical.
Right.
I even went back to the original doctor that I had that physical with at 24. And I asked him, I go, Doc, would you consider adding a breast exam for a male during your physical? And he essentially started rambling off all the stats. Well, it's like less than 1% of cases, and it's really supposed to be it's more of a hereditary thing, and all this other stuff. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, I'm literally paying you $200 to walk in this door for like 15 to 30 minutes or whatnot, and you are essentially telling me it's not worth your time to do a 30-second to 1 minute exam on a male because we don't have breasts, so it's pretty much a quick rundown. You do a quick feel and everything. Are there any lumps? No, your lumps. You're good to go. You're pretty much telling me that it's not worth your time because statistically, it's not a big thing. But
I mean, where else are they going to get somebody to check it other than the physical?
Exactly.
We'll put it in the show notes. So you are having your 12th annual conference, the 24th and the 25th of April. So
24th, 25th, 26th. Yeah.
Yes, coming up very soon. And you can watch it online if you cannot get to Kansas City. So I will definitely put that in the show notes as well, that if people want to register, you have like over 20 speakers, I think. So it's going to be
something like that. We got quite a few. Some of them, a few can't make it or join us virtually during the time and stuff. So we've done some recordings, so we'll have those posted up. So the biggest thing, so Thursday, everybody's arriving in town. We're going to be doing a big mama burger party at the house. For those that don't know, you're missing out. But it's just been a very long tradition. We did it shortly after my surgery and stuff, invited all the doctors and nurses and everybody over to the house as like a big celebration after my surgery. So we just kind of kept the tradition going. So we'll have that on Thursday night, and then Friday we'll start the speakers around 9:30 and roll till it's a long day of speakers.
So if you can tune in next weekend or this coming weekend, there's going to be some great information, and I would imagine you can kind of come and go if you're online and check out some of the speakers and just get more information on this huge topic, which is not talked about nearly enough.
Yes, we will have that link on our website, malebreastcancerhappens.org. So go check it out there. But, biggest things I can say is be your own best advocate. Check yourself. Do, if you've got a significant other, do buddy checks. There
you go.
Have fun with it.
Well, thank you so much for being on, Bret. This was a great conversation. And again, such an important topic. And I really appreciate you sharing your time and all the things that you were doing to spread the word globally about male breast cancer. So men have breasts too. Get them checked and be your own best advocate. So thank you so much again for joining me today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Right. Bye, Melissa. We'll see you next week.